Hey, this is Dave at West Texas Bugs. Today I'm going to tie a floss-bodied stimulator. So it's just what I've been tying lately. And stimulators, you know, have been around a long time, and they were developed by a guy named Jim Slattery over at Jim's Campfire Lodge in West Yellowstone. You know, there's a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different body materials. Do you hackle the body? Don't you hackle the body? Have fun with them. You know, they're here to stimulate, so don't be afraid to make them bright and loud. The hook I'm going to use is an Arex sedge hook. It's a size 10. And I'm going to use Semperfli's black waxed and 8/0 thread. So here we go. I'm going to just go ahead and dress my hook all the way down to about where the barb would be if this was a barbed hook, maybe just a touch farther. Okay, some people don't like tying on like 200 Rs and, you know, stimulator hooks, but they like tying them on the straight hooks. But for this video, we'll tie on this. So I've got a little clump of cow elk, and this is going to be my tail. So not very much, kind of a sparse little tail. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to really short. So I'm just going to pinch it in my left hand. I'm going to flatten my thread out, and I'm going to come up, and I'm going to go ahead and go around my clump of elk hair up in the air, and that kind of bundles it up so it sits nicely on top of my hook shank. I'm going to go ahead and get it nice and tight. Let go, take a look, and then what I like to do, instead of trying to chase these butts forward, is I just lift them all straight up, bring my thread up to about the 2/3 point, lay my butts back down, and just trap them here. And then that way I can come back down and just wrap my body. I find that's the easiest way to do a stimulator body. Okay, and then come in, get rid of all these butts. Next thing I'm going to tie in is some wire. So let's see what I have here. So this is just some copper wire. I think this is it's not extra small. It's probably small, or it might be 0.3 millimeters from Semperfli. Okay, I'm going to wrap it in. I'm going to let it go over onto the other side of my hook shank because I'm going to counter wrap it. All right, for the body on this fly, I'm just going to use this. This is Danville's 4-strand, really similar to floss. Okay, so get your floss all together. Make sure your ends are nice and even. And just trap it in the back and then slide it until it's slick stuff. Okay, and tie it down. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and just throw a half hitch and get my bobbin out of the way. Okay, so when you do floss on a rotary vise, no matter which rotary vise, it has a tendency to kind of cord up on you. So if you'll just take your finger and kind of hold it flat like tape, and just be real careful, you don't want to nick floss with your hook point because it'll get fuzzy on you. And then just go ahead and just make sure it goes on nice and flat. And when you get up here, if you want to build a little bit of a taper, you can just go back down a little bit, back up. You know, you can create whatever body shape you want. Probably doesn't matter at all to the fish, but we care about stuff like that. All right, so now tie off your floss, and you need to tie this off really securely because it is slick. So using wax thread is a good thing. Tying with floss and nano silk is, you're just asking for it then. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw another half hitch, and I'm going to counter wrap this wire. So the reason to counter wrap this wire, it's, you know, usually we counter wrap to increase strength. That's really not the case with the floss body. But if I don't wrap it in the opposite direction, then it has a tendency to fall down in the wraps, in between the wraps of the floss, or whatever material went in the usual direction. The counter wrap then will set on top of it. And that's the only reason that you would do that in this case. Okay, and then go ahead and just twist your, okay. Now, for a wing, I've got a little bigger clump of cleaned elk hair, and you want to take it out with the tips facing back. And this is not a huge clump. In fact, that might be just a touch more than I want. Thin that out a little bit. Okay, now I want my wing to come back about halfway into my tail. Okay, so I want to measure it out, swap hands, and then go ahead. I like to do 2 wraps up in the air, and that really bundles my hair. And then when I set it down, it has less of a tendency to roll. And then I'm going to go ahead and get some nice tight wraps in there, and then I'm going to let go of the wing and the bobbin at the same time. Okay, and make sure that I like the way everything's positioned. All right, now take your butts, bring up about a third, tight, a third, tight. Look at that, I got 4/3. And then bring everything back, do a little bit of a dam in front. And then if you'll bring your butts back forward, try to separate them, and then just park your bobbin behind there, then it'll kind of separate everything out for you. All right, so now instead of just coming in here and cutting these off really short, if I'll come in and cut them kind of like an elk hair caddis, then it'll create a nicer shape for me to wrap my hackle in the thorax. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut them just a little bit long, kind of like an elk hair caddis. And I got a few wayward. All right, now flatten your thread out really well, and then just tie down through all this. And then what you'll notice is it gives you a little bit more of a cone shape. So your hackle now is not, it's not like a giant bump and then a real steep angle coming down. So I don't like that hair right there. So away it goes. And then if I was just doing dubbing, I wouldn't worry about trimming this up. But with floss, these butt ends will kind of stick through. So I'm just going to come in and do a little bit of a haircut. I don't have to clean it up perfectly, but all right. So now my hackle. So what I have for a hackle is just it's a golden badger. And I've taken and I've removed the leading edge of hackle, so I just have the back edge. So I'll have a much cleaner look when I wrap this. And again, that's not an important step. If I'm just out fishing and tying a bunch of stimulators, it's not something I do. But for, you know, having fun doing a video, why not? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and trap my floss, and now I'm using some uni floss in gold. Like I said, don't be afraid to go bright. You know, this fly's job is to stimulate. So you want the fish to look up and go, "What the hell is that?" All right. So this is just single strand, but I still want it to go on nice and flat, and I want it to cover everything. Just kind of let it feed out of your fingers flat. And if a few of these butts stick through it, it's not going to be a problem because it's all going to be covered really well with hackle. So don't worry about it too much unless you're just super anal. Then you can just do whatever you want. All right. So now I'm just going to go ahead and tie this off really well. And cut my waist off. Do a little better job than that, I think. Make sure that's tight because you don't want your floss coming loose. All right, so now I'm going to take my hackle, and on this part I don't like to use rotary on any vise. I like to do this by hand because I really like to get it, my wraps right where I want them. I'm going to get a little short here, so I'm going to have to use a hackle plier. Okay, so once I have it started, now I can rotary it on up. And you want to just get a nice, smooth, full hackle. When I fish them, sometimes I'll actually cut the bottom of the hackle off so it lays a little flatter in the water, but yeah, it's totally up to you. Come in, tie off my hackle. Cut it loose and whip finish. Build up a little bit of a head here. Okay, and I always like to add a little bit of UV. Whichever brand you like. This is the Solar Res. Okay, and now just take a good look at your fly. Make sure your wing is not covering the sides of your body. And, you know, have fun with these. It's a fun fly to tie. They fish really well. They've been around a long time. There's a lot of ways to do them. And I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.